If there's someone in town, then a few people get dragged along to see them. You know, the agents are saying, come and see this, come and see that, you know, but it's not a showcase per se like the Great Escape. The Great Escape, where
but going back to the other events, I would say that things like Dot to Dot and Autonomous Parties, those events definitely worth, in terms of if you bring your band over.
Yeah.
Even though
around one of the big ones, so you've got something to.
I mean, if you're any sort of rock band and you get offered any slot at Reading Festival, take it. Because at least there, like Glastonbury, you can actually get, because they're all the stages are walkable. So if you're working that show, you can get 10 journalists to it if you're.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. We're going to move it back to Australia now for Q&A time. So over to you, Matthew.
Okay, we might start with Adelaide. Linda, are there any questions in the room there?
Just checking, we'd also appreciate the many references to Adelaide and its bands like the Hoods and City Riot, so thanks for that, and Fuse as well. We do have someone that's interested in Medium. You may have already answered that question in terms of the kinds of people. Do you want to ask anything else on that?
No, more just visa stuff to do with that, but I can talk to you about that later.
Okay.
So we're cool.
No, that's it for us, guys. Thank you.
Vince, Ian, in Brisbane, are there any questions in the Brisbane room?
Yes, guys, we do have a couple of questions.
G'day, Quentin's my name from Jen Shen. The question is, the focus has been largely on live aspects of the business, and I guess I've got a question in regard to bands that are largely studio-based and have still managed to have successful careers like the Gorillaz. Have you got any comments on that sort of stuff?
So studio.
It's becoming a lot more difficult because the audiences in the UK are wanting to see live music, and I mean Gorillaz, they were successful off the back of Blur being successful, and without that initial success, I don't know if they would have actually taken off at that level. It's all to do with the revenue streams. How do you make the money for a studio-based act at the moment? It is very, very difficult.
Well, publishing obviously, but I mean, but no, in terms of mechanicals, no, that world's just disappearing.
So the pop industry. I mean, if you're a great songwriter, then there's the publishing side of it is, the pop industry is still doing well. You need to hook up with Adele and Leona Lewis and Duffy and
things like Songwing International and play and sort of shop your music around them.
Simon Cowell's quite a good chap to know. He can hook you up with some artists.
But for the vast majority of acts, if you haven't got a live career, then you're not going to have much to
and I think in reality,
because the whole sync market's going to go downhill soon.
Yeah.
Well, it's already started to go downhill. But I think now's probably not the right time to go into the future of the publishing industry. But I mean, it's like at the moment it's healthy in the UK, the publishing side of things. But everyone's predicting it to start going downwards. And so far, publishers haven't really stepped up to the mark in terms. Obviously, there are some examples of bands where they have done it, but they haven't really taken over from record companies yet, which everyone was kind of expecting them to do. Yeah. And it's much more. In fact, I would say it's more likely to be the live music industry putting that sort of initial investment in.
Okay, thanks guys. Another question from Brisbane for you.
Oh, hello, I'm Maggie from Oak Records, based here in Australia. You have just mentioned Duffy and Leona Lewis. What's the route into the UK for a similar artist from Australia?
What's the route in?
Yes, the route in to the UK. You've been talking about bands. You've been sort of focused on a certain area of the industry. But for those who are aiming at commercial and spreading their wings into the UK, I mean, we recorded our artist there in February. We would like to get her into the UK. What do you suggest? Who do you suggest?
Well, Leona Lewis obviously was a hit on the back of a TV show, X Factor. Duffy, the reason she got big was she was pretty much all the national newspapers predicted her as somebody who was going to be big, and very much a Radio 2 act, and Radio 2 is easily the biggest radio station in the country. So it was just a well-organised thing by a major label. They almost did she's pretty good anyway, but it was a very much traditional job. It was just like they got the hype going, she delivered a good record, and Radio 2 just played it wall to wall, and suddenly again it was in every supermarket in the country and sold 1 million copies. So that's a good example where you still need a version of the traditional machine.
That's right, but on the other, sometimes that doesn't work so well in, for instance, Missy Higgins, who is absolutely massive in Australia, has not found it an easy market here to break. She's actually, I think, doing better in America.
She's doing better in America,
than she is here. She's still playing largely an expat audience here. So, if we knew the right route in for all these people, if we knew all the right answers to that, we'd be there. But it's equally as difficult.
But you need to be signed to Universal Records.
I think it's almost a more traditional route, isn't it?
There were 4
that machinery still works.
They control the channels to market, and there's no way of getting around it. So if you want to get into that marketplace, there were 4. EMI is sort of dropping out of the race a little bit, as with Warner's. So Sony, BMG, or Universal. And if they're not prepared to put their engine behind your release, it's going to be very, very difficult to get into the marketplace at that level and compete with those people.
Okay, anything more out of Brisbane?
No, that's it from us. Thanks, guys. Good answers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Catherine in Hobart.
No questions from us here in Hobart. Thanks, though.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Hobart.
David, Melbourne, there's a team of people in there. There must be questions.
There's a stack of questions here. We'll start over here to my left.
Hi, I've got a question about the folk scene. Here and also in Canada, there's sort of a parallel folk scene where there's, almost they have to have their own celebrities and some, with the festival circuit, it's almost like their own economy. You've been talking much more about kind of rock and indie culture. What are the folk clubs like over there, the folk clubs and acoustic venues, and how open are they to contemporary folk and alternative folk?
I don't know about the club circuit, but the folk festival circuit is extremely healthy at the moment, and there's a lot of kind of small boutique crossover festivals. Like last weekend was the last one, the End of the Road Festival, very much focuses on Americana folk, and new folk. Yeah. Very, very healthy market.
Absolutely, and there's lots of little showcase shows. Like there's the Bedford in London. There's the Electroacoustic Showcase. There's what's that one in the toilets at Shepherd's Bush? It's the converted toilet.
Underground there.
Next to the underground.
There's lots of little sort of like acoustic, semi-acoustic showcase gigs that you can get.
There's probably about 40 festivals now between the sort of 10,000 mark.
Cambridge, Guildfest, loads of sort of folk stages and slightly Americana, indie.
Particularly like Cambridge, that's the most established one. I mean, they love putting on new acts.
Absolutely.
From different parts of the world. That's part of their brief. Yeah.
And one big different thing in the UK is that with venues, you don't really get foot traffic into a venue. So you don't really have a rock club or it's whatever the night is. And so you can go to the Barfly and they'll have 3 bands on a particular night that are all folk oriented. And so what we're finding in Camden is that there's a lot more happening in that area than there has been for a long time, and we put club nights on ourselves, which are all folk band oriented. We do a little showcase once a month in a place called Kilburn, in a tiny little bar. You can only fit 80 people into it, and it is rammed. And we put the best bands on that are in that scene and in that circuit. So that's another thing, that is a scene that is really lively and vibrant in the UK, and quite easy to get into if you're really good, because it's not as so cool and who's got the best haircut focus as what the indie scene was. This is actually about music.
Got the best songs.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yep, here we go.
In Australia, we've got some good indie distributors. If you can get together your own promotion, press agents and radio pluggers. Let's say I had a budget to do the same in the UK to get a decent radio plugger and press agent. Who are your good indie distributors over there?
It's proper and absolute, really.
Depending on it's difficult because they're all struggling so much at the moment. So you've got Play It Again, Sam. You've got Proper, Absolute, Pinnacle.
So it's still there. Okay.
But on a weekly basis, the retailers go out of business.
Yeah, you won't have any shares in these companies.
No. They are,
because the number of record stores is going down. I mean, there isn't much apart from servicing Amazon. There's not many stores, and the stores that are left are more and more selling games.
We're working on a release through Universal at the moment with for a January release of an album, and the idea at the moment is that we'll give HMV the exclusive, and I seem to be the only one in the room saying, well, there'll only be HMV left in January, so it's not really that exclusive. And maybe even not HMV. But, so, yeah,
There's something like 50, 60 good independent record stores left in the country.
Sister Race,
and then maybe next year there'll be 30 left. So, I can't see how independent distributors are going to survive, apart from you'll end up with like a shed somewhere next to Amazon's warehouse, because Amazon likes to be serviced on a daily basis almost, and that'll be the distribution, the physical side.
Camden, 18 months ago in Camden there were 5 retailers. So so you had HMV were there, Virgin Megastore. There were 3 other, so one called FOP, and there were 2 other independent retailers. There are none now. You cannot buy a CD in Camden. Apart from a bootleg CD at the market.
I think that's it, guys.
Okay. I understand there's a quick question in Adelaide.
Yes, hi, thanks for that. Just a question, we were talking about sort of artists going over to perform and breaking into the market. What about lyrics and songs and looking at getting some of those works published? What's the best angle for a songwriter?
I don't know enough about the publishing world. So,
Okay.
I'll take that question from here, because essentially, if you're going to do publishing for the UK, you really need to already be on board with a publisher here in Australia and have them working through their networks at the Mid-Ems and all those other places where grey men in suits who trade copyrights hang out. That's the pathway to market. And so unless you're with a publisher here in Australia who's repping you, you're probably not going to pick up a publisher in the UK.
Yeah, and it's going to get a lot easier for Australian publishers to be able to service the whole of Europe as well. Because it used to be a right pain in the arse to you had to register in each country, and the EU's changing the rules on that. So, but that's kind of work in progress. So more and more you'll have, you won't do these sub-licensing deals anymore unless somebody really thinks they can get a lot of local sync money. But I personally think that market's going to nosedive.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, over to you, Eric, in Perth, please.
A comment from Brisbane?
Yeah.
Just to the lady who was speaking about that with the publishing and getting the songs placed, one good avenue into the UK, but also internationally, is a publication called Song Link, run by a fellow called David Stark. You can look that up on Google. Yeah. It's a good avenue.
Yeah, you're right. He if you like, showcases it in print and online, and puts songwriters and people like Simon Cowell and the manufacturers of pop and middle of the road sounds. He puts them together. You can you can get your lips sort of registered and have the Pussycat Dolls have a chance at recording it or something. Probably not Pussycat Dolls, but that sort of thing. That's the sort of market. And David Stark is constantly networking at all the business events. He's basically out there all the time looking for new lyrics and looking for new artists to put the songs to. So yes, he's a very good contact.